And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who had a great 4th of July. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And I had a great 4th of July, and I want to tell you something about it. And I'd like to know about yours, too, by the way. It's a great, great day here. It's beautiful. We are not on the island of Milleronia today. We are on the mainland. That's the Colonel and I. Colonel Jeff and I are on the mainland, and there's a reason for that, too. And it's a great reason, and I'm going to tell you about it. But boy, oh boy, folks, that, again, a gorgeous day here, and that music makes me happy. It always does. And, Colonel Jeff, too. We feel good, and we feel ready as soon as we hear it. And, of course, that's the Captain Quint Orchestra and the Noel Neal Dancers, featuring boy tenor Zalman Korf, asking the musical question, "So, Mr. Doorman, did you steal the couch?" Well, Zalman asked a great question. It's a heck of a question. And in fact, when I heard the question, I just looked at Colonel Jeff, and he looked at me, and I said, "Is that?" And he just nodded yes. There was, the show Seinfeld is a terrific show. It always has been, and it still is. And I was on one of the episodes where I was the doorman in Elaine's boss's building, right? So that was kind of a fancy building. It's sort of embarrassing I had to ask that. I had to look to the colonel and say, that was her boss's building, right? I mean, I know the part, and I had a great time doing it. Oh, that show's terrific. By the way, I learned, something? You should always learn in show business. There's a lot to learn. And I learned a great acting lesson working on Seinfeld that week. Because I was ready to go. I was trying all sorts of dance steps and flips and, little things with language and inflection. And, you know what? Jerry and, Larry David came over to me also once after the first day of, in the middle of rehearsal. And you know what? They said to me, "Hey, here's a secret for you and a tip. You're already great. You don't have to dance on it that way." You know what? It was like the old Spencer Tracy acting advice of you just say the words and don't bump into the furniture. And that's very wise advice. If you're an actor and you think about it, that really means a lot. But that's what they were telling me. You know what? We have the show set, and just your natural ability and everything you've worked on is just what we want. And they were right. You take all the stuff off that you were putting on, and just being there and swinging the bat that way it was a great lesson. And you know what? So that was one of the points of that part that week. That was a good part, being the doorman. And I think I got to pronounce it a few different ways. Oh, he's the doorman. But I had a great time playing it. And as Zalman was just saying, somebody stole the couch from the lobby there in her boss's building. And they needed a new couch. And I think it was in passing, one of them just said, might have been Julia Louis-Dreyfus or Jerry, as they were talking and arguing about it, saying that, and she said, well, maybe could have been anyone who stole it. Could have been the doorman. Maybe he stole it. And so that's what Zalman was asking. So, Mr. Doorman, did you steal the couch? And, did I steal that couch, Zalman? I can't say, for a variety of reasons. But Hollywood furniture for movies and TV shows is very good. Far better than you think. And I can tell you that. But it's never just ratty old things that get thrown out. I always wanted to take things from the set I never did before. And a good example of that is that in the Nutty Professor movies, I wore, they had good clothes for me too, good suits to wear. And one of them was handmade. And it was blue cashmere. And I had to say to the colonel, what is that province of India called with the nice clothes? And he said that cashmere. And I said, you're right. These were really nice suits. And they made 3 of them. And that was one of them I wore. You may remember that well, after getting attacked by the hamster, which is a good segue. And but after getting attacked, I pitched to Pete Siegel, who was the director, and I said, why don't we slice up the suit jacket? With with razors or, scissors. We'll do it in wardrobe, obviously, but why don't we slice that up to look as if it's been clawed by an immense hamster, which is part of what happens in it. And it doesn't have to look that way because I'm entering, so it looks like I'm just wearing the suit. That's a nice suit, too. And after going through the scene with Eddie Murphy, then I can say I get mad, and by the way, I think you're fired and you're fat or whatever, however it goes. And then I say, all right, I'll see you later. You get out of here, whatever it is. And I turn and walk out, and you notice, and he notices as the character that, holy mackerel, that suit doesn't look so good from the back. That hamster really got him. But I wanted that suit, by the way. That's the reason I'm telling you this story. It was not the one that was torn up, but there were 2 other really gorgeous blue cashmere suits. And these were 3-piece suits with a vest, and they fit perfectly. They were handmade for me by handmade tailors and on the set there. And I said to the wardrobe folks and to the producer, I said, can I get those suits? And, I'd love them because, also they always save clothes in the movie business, and especially at Universal. They have a great building, the Edith Head Building. And folks, they save things. You see names in jackets like Oliver Hardy, and they never throw anything out. And they said to me, because I said I'd pay for it. I wasn't looking for it for free. Well, I was, but I would have happily paid for it. But they said, no, we can't do it. Got to hang on to those and put them in the vaults of the Edith Head Building, just in case. You never know what'll happen. But I respect that. I can understand that. But boy, I always wanted those suits because they always save them. And so you know what? Things for movies and TV shows are far better than you might think. And those were good movies, too, the Nutty Professor movies. But the furniture on Seinfeld was very, very good. Did I steal that couch? Well, let me tell you as much as I can, Zalman. Did I steal that couch? Is selling stealing? Now, I'm not saying I stole it because that's wrong. But it's possible I sold it to a fan of the show, and she stole it, in effect. And it wasn't for a lot of money, just enough to take the whole family out for a big fancy steak dinner. And those are not cheap, as you know. My wife and I had a couple of cocktails, and the boys had some nice, big, tall, cold Cokes. And so I did not steal it. I'm not saying I stole it. And I'm not even saying I sold it. But if I did anything with it, it was selling it. And I'm not saying I did. So good question, Zalman. It's a heck of a question. And good for you. And by the way, you may have noticed I mentioned a couple of names there. The Captain Quint Orchestra. I'm going to be talking about him later. And you may already know that from the name. And the Noel Neal Dancers. God bless her. She just passed away this past weekend, July 4th weekend. And she was Lois Lane on the Superman TV show, the one with George Reeves. And boy, it's a terrific show. I hope you feel the same way. I loved the original Superman. I didn't see it when it was on the air the first time. But, as they ran it in reruns and then reran it again, those were terrific shows. I saw every one 10 times. And boy, oh boy, and she was great as Lois Lane. And what an interesting woman. She died, she was 95. And she was in over 40 movies and sang with Bob Crosby and his orchestra. And here's an interesting thing. First of all, an authorized bio of her was written in 2003 titled Truth, Justice, and the American Way. And I think that's a great title. I always liked that from the narration portion of the opening of every Superman show of Truth, Justice, and the American Way. And, I just thought the show was great anyway, and their whole outlook was terrific. And you know what? For the last 20 years of her life, she was a regular. She went to Comic-Con festivals, and she was very popular there for autographs. And she always really played it up in a great way. She would dress in that 40s or 50s way that she did, and she was beautiful in it, and they all loved her. All the Comic-Con fans just adored her. And I hope she made a good living there selling autographs. She sure deserves it. And here's an interesting fact about her, though. And I didn't know this, and Colonel Jeff told me. He read it in her bio here, that Noel Neal's pinup shot was very popular. You know how Betty Grable's pinup shot was so popular? You must have seen it 1,000 times. The soldiers loved it. That Betty Grable shot, she's blonde, she's wearing a bathing suit, and her back is to the camera, really, and she's looking over her shoulder at you, at me, at everyone. It was a great pinup shot. It was a perfect Hollywood shot, and that was number one. All the soldiers loved that shot so much. It was number one by far. But do you know who number two was? That's right, Noel Neal. She had a pinup shot, and it was ranked number two. They loved it, and they loved her. And so did I. You know what? I hope you did too. So, Noel, boy, you were great in the show. And I sure wish I were at some of those Comic-Con festivals and I could have seen you and smiled at you and said, by golly, you're just great. And you know what? She is Truth, Justice, and the American Way. She is, as far as I'm concerned. And by Amazon and PayPal and my book. That's right. And again, Amazon, still my favorite company in the entire world because they do 3 things no one else does. 3 things no one else can do. Number 1, whatever you order, you can get. Whatever you want, you can get. Number 2, they already have it. They don't even have to send out for it. They don't have to make it or get it anywhere. They have it. They have one of those giant Indiana Jones warehouses that's a mile long and a mile wide and a mile high and a mile deep. It's just full of everything you could ever imagine. And number 3, this is kind of the most important part, they send us a percentage of whatever you want. So that's pretty good. Certainly is from my point of view and Colonel Jeff's point of view. You know that whatever you order, folks, they send us a percentage of it. So do that. Go if you're going to go to Amazon, and why wouldn't you? Come on. And one of the best parts is we can take you there because you don't have to open your computer or your iPhone or your screen. You don't have to do anything. You could, but why bother? What you do is go to our website, which is LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the Mountain? Tom Mix. I haven't heard that one. That's just great. Another new flourish from Colonel Jeff. And a trumpet player. He just, God bless him, he's out there somewhere. And now he's on here somewhere. So you know what? What you do is go to our website. We have a banner that says Amazon. Click that, and then you don't have to worry about a thing. Click that and go to sleep. Take a nap. Click that and lay yourself down in your big easy boy chair or your lazy boy chair. And you just, tip it back, put a magazine over your face and take a great nap. Because we'll take you to Amazon. Doesn't matter when you call. Doesn't matter when you send a message on our website. We'll get up. The phones we have in our homes, our apartments, everything we have, they start flashing the light on the top that says that orange light. That's, of course, normally used when just the president calls. Colonel Jeff and I will get together, and we'll get you there. In the middle of the night, could be any time. We'll come to the studio. Could be here on the mainland. It could be on our island of Milleronia, and we'll go right to the studio there. And we'll get you there, and they'll send us a percentage of whatever you order, and we'll take it. We put it right in our big box for which we save the next big fancy fried chicken dinner and 2 drinks beforehand in a different place. That's what we do. So anyway, thank you, Amazon, and by PayPal. They're just wonderful. And we have a banner for them on our website, too, that says, PayPal. And it's one of my favorite names. And you know what? If you enjoy the show here, and why wouldn't you? And if you'd like to send us a few bucks to help out, and why wouldn't you? You can do it through PayPal. And I don't like to say, donate this or pay what you like or join the Platinum Committee. I'm not fond of those. I always just say, buy us some drinks. That's right. Me and the Colonel buy us some drinks, and because there are different levels of drinking. There's level 1 through 5, all the way up to... We're driving to Florida! Still love that guy who just screams, yes! He's got to have both arms up in the air when he says that, doesn't it? He's been clapping, and then he goes, yes, with his arms in the air. So you know what? Look for the PayPal banner on our website. Once again, that's LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the Mountain? Tom Mix. Always sounds like he's going through a dangerous lock on a canal. The captain of that ship. So thank you in advance, because every little bit helps us keep the old leg lamp lit here. And thank you very much to everyone who's contributed already and everyone who's about to. And by me, because signed hardcover copies of my book, Spoiled Rotten America, are for sale now at store.comedyfilmnerds.com. I'm very proud of that book. I loved writing it, and it did very well when it was out for sale. It did really well, and I'm proud of that too. Store.comedyfilmnerds.com. I think you'll like the book. It's funny, and it's sweet, and it's strong. Oh, wait, that's me. Oh, yeah, the book is too. And so call and order, and we'll send it right to you. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. Well, as you know, I love telling a joke every week because it's a great gift. It's nice to pass along to you, and if you like it, you pass it along too, to family or friends or loved ones. And this is a good one. Colonel Jeff and I both like this one. There's a fella who sits down on a park bench in the park, and it might be Central Park in New York, too. There's plenty of room around there, and he's going to enjoy, Party brought his lunch in a bag, and he's going to enjoy his lunch hour just sitting on that bench. And he's there just a minute or two, and an old woman comes over to him and taps him on the shoulder. And he turns around and smiles at her, and she smiles at him, as she was just sitting on the next park bench with a friend of hers, another lady. And so the old woman says to him, I'm sorry to bother you, but I was just wondering, do you like almonds and hazelnuts? And he says, well, I do. I like them very much. Why? And she said, would you like some? Would you like some right now? And he says, yes, I would. How do I get them? And she opens, and in her hand, she's got a big handful of almonds and hazelnuts. And he smiles, how do you like that? And she pours them into his hands and wipes her hands off on them and says, all right, and smiles and says, enjoy that. And she walks back to her bench, and he has a couple, and they taste as you would want. They taste great. And he has the almonds and the hazelnuts, and he starts to pick up half of his sandwich there again. But at that point, well, the old lady comes over again and taps him on the shoulder again, and he looks up again and says, well, hello, ma'am. What are you doing now? What can I do for you? And she said, did you like those almonds and hazelnuts? And he says, well, yes, I did, and I'm glad you gave them to me. And she said, would you like some more? And he thinks for a second and says, well, I would. Thank you. They're very, very good. And she says, open your hand. And he does. And same way she pours, well, some almonds and hazelnuts from her hand into his hand. And she smiles and says, all right, enjoy them. And he does. He eats the other almonds and hazelnuts, and he likes them very much. Goes back to picking up that first half a sandwich, but she's back again, taps him on the shoulder again, and he looks up with another smile, but now he says to her, well, ma'am, forgive me, what's going on here? And she said, would you like some more almonds and hazelnuts? And he says, well, this time he says, well, to be honest, I like them, but I have brought my own lunch here too. Why don't you eat them? Why don't you eat your own almonds and hazelnuts? And she says to him, well, to be honest, I can't eat them. I don't have teeth to eat them. And, that would be very, very, well, it would be impossible for me to do that. And he says, oh, I see. Sure. And then he says, well, why do you get them in the first place then? And she says, oh, I just like the chocolate on the outside. Boo. Uh-oh. Ooh. Well, the Colonel and I thought that's a pretty good joke and fun to pass along to you. But I think that's a pretty good joke. Oh, I just like the chocolate on the outside. So that's our joke of the week, and I think that's a pretty good one. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. The Poetry Corner. Sounds like that guy is coughing because that's what happened after the old woman said to him, oh, I like the chocolate on the outside. Anyway, this is a fine poem. It's by Jane Taylor, and it's called The Violet. And Jane Taylor is an English poet and novelist. She lived from 1783 to 1824. And here's a funny thing about entertainment and show business. She wrote the words to a little song known as Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Isn't that neat? Isn't that nice to know? Well, how do you like that? That was Jane Taylor. And that was, by the way, that poem was originally published as a nursery rhyme called The Star. But today, I'm reading you one by her called The Violet. And here we go. Down in a green and shady bed, a modest violet grew. Its stalk was bent, it hung its head, as if to hide from view. And yet it was a lovely flower, its color bright and fair. It might have graced a rosy bower, instead of hiding there. Yet thus it was content to bloom, in modest tints arrayed, and there diffused a sweet perfume within the silent shade. Then let me to the valley go, this pretty flower to see, that I may also learn to grow in sweet humility. Isn't that lovely, folks? And that's a great lesson she learned. You know what? She likes that violet so much, she's saying, let me go there to the valley. And I think I will. She's going to go to the valley, this pretty flower to see, that I may also learn to grow in sweet humility. She learns that from the violet, the humility of the violet, who's happy to be where he is. Well, that's a good one, too. And same as a joke. If you like that, please pass that along to friends and loved ones. And that brings us to my third favorite part of the show, MMM, the Triple M, Magic Movie Moment. Boy, that song is great, too. This is a good movie to have magic about, and it has to do also, it touches on, you may have seen it this week, and it was on a lot, because it has to do with the 4th of July. The 4th of July is very prominent in this movie as a background that draws people. And where does it draw people to? It draws people to the island of Amityville in New England. And the movie is called Jaws from 1975, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring, oh, what a cast, Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Murray Hamilton, so many others. A great cast, a great movie, and, of course, terrifying. It's about, well, if you don't know Jaws, well, see it soon. If you've seen it 30 times, see it again. If you've never seen it, seen it. You won't sleep with the lights off for a while, but see it. And you know what? The scene, by the way, that was a magic movie moment to me that I remembered as soon as the topic came up. And Colonel Jeff said, how about that one? And the scene I remembered instantly is, well, it's in the boat at night, and they're already out to sea. And the three men, Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss, have already had a lot of big fighting with that shark. And they're around the table, inside the boat there, and they're drinking and singing songs, sailor songs. And it looks like fun to be around there. And Robert Shaw, well, they're all great actors, but Robert Shaw, God bless him, was always a fabulous actor. He was in the James Bond movie From Russia with Love, right? Wasn't that him? The big tall, oh, he's just a great actor. And Robert Shaw they're talking about this and that, and he and Richard Dreyfuss start to compare shark scars, because Robert Shaw, of course, has seen many sharks, and his fame as a shark hunter is how he got hired by Roy Scheider to go on this hunt. And he's asked about his other experiences with sharks. How did he get this interest in the first place? And he tells about his service in the Navy on the Indianapolis in World War II in the Pacific. And the Indianapolis was attacked by the Japanese, and the Japanese sunk it. And they weren't big on picking up survivors, so they didn't. And Robert Shaw, Captain Quint, and hundreds of other surviving Americans had to kick sharks away in the ocean, in the water, for 3 days and nights waiting to be rescued. More than that, in fact. And folks, the sharks wanted them, and the hundreds and hundreds of them, they were trying to stay in circular groups. They were trying to stay together. They were trying to hold on to each other. But the sharks kept winning. And Robert Shaw tells the story about, waking up one morning. They're all in the water. They've been in the water for days and days. And he goes to wake his friend up. His best friend is next to him, another sailor. And he's asleep, and Shaw just taps him on the shoulder and then pounds him on the shoulder and says, "Let's go, time to wake up." And the friend just tips over because he's dead. He was eaten from the waist down by one of the sharks. And he tells these stories and how it moved him and how he got injured and what all of this means. And you know something, folks? It's not only wonderful and very moving to listen to, but it teaches us a lot about this character. And you like him a lot more than you have in the entire movie. And it makes you realize the truth. Because by the way, the Indianapolis was a true ship, and this really happened. And it tells you, another truth about Captain Quint, that he's got a lot in his past, and a lot that brought him knowledge, and he was heroic about a lot. And you know what? Well, that's good enough for me. That's a magic movie moment for me, and I hope it is for you. It's a good movie. Whew. Boy, I got so scared from it. A couple of weeks after seeing that, my friend Jimmy Kaufman and I took a ride, drove down to the coast in New Jersey from Long Island, where we lived, where we grew up. And Jimmy was driving, and there was a little MG. No, it wasn't an MG. What's wrong with me? It was, not a Triumph. Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, for goodness sake. In British Racing Green. Oh, phooey. But we drove down there. And we spent time. They had, they had a lot of bars down there, and we went into a couple of them, but we were on the beach most of the time, and we went in the water, and we were loving it, looking at girls walking by in bikinis, and we enjoyed that too. And then we were in the ocean. Oh, let's see, and it wasn't so deep. It was thigh deep, which is deep enough for me, and deep enough for most people, and deep enough for sharks, too, by the way. That's where they really get you. And Jimmy thought it would be fun. He came towards me underwater. I didn't see him. And he came toward me underwater there in the ocean, and he grabbed my leg with his two hands around the calf, and not surprisingly, I just turned every color in the book, blue, green, orange, and I mean just, and he just kind of got out of then he stood up, and he was chuckling, and he saw that I was, I was almost shaking. I'd just seen Jaws, for crying out loud. And I said, "Do me a favor. Don't ever do that to me again, because you just took 10 years off my life. So please don't do that." And he knew, he might have been kidding around, but he knew I wasn't kidding around. So in any case, that might have been a magic movie moment for me, but it wasn't in real life. And you know what? It reminds me, though, and I'm going to tell you why we're not in Milleronia today. So we're not in Milleronia today for two reasons, and one of them is sitting here right now. As you know, we've never had a guest on our show, and that's just the way it is, that sometimes we thought about, should we start having guests, or, we could do anything. I could like that, but so far it's just wonderful to talk to you. And but this weekend, for July 4th weekend, and for a few days after that, our older son, who's a Marine, came by to the house. He called us up and said, "You know what? I'm coming by this weekend." He's off duty, and he had 8 days off or 9 days off And he said he's coming by, and we said, wow, of course. Good Lord. Come on by. We love him and miss him every second. And he said, I'm bringing a couple of my friends, other Marines, with me. And we've done that before a handful of times. And we love it. We really do. That's no kidding. We like these guys. We dig them. And this was, Sackett and McNeil. And well, our son came by. And we just had the best time. And he's here now. He's here another few days. Another couple of days. And so I said last night to him, would you like to come on the show and just say hi to folks? And he said, you know what? That would be cool. So that's what we're doing now. And he's right here. And he laughed at that joke too. And there's so much to tell about what happened this weekend with the Marines here. Isn't there? So anyway, you may want to just say hello to the folks.
Yeah, well, hello out there. And I am my father's son, so there's that. That's
right. There is that. That's a big thing for both of us. Mm-hmm. And I just love them to pieces. And we throw good 4th of Julys. We really do here in the house.
Yeah.
We we made this one bigger because he and the other Marines were out by the pool. We have a pool, and we have another son who's 17, and he's spending a month at USC studying video design, video game design. And so he got free. He could get picked up.
That was a pain in itself, but yeah.
Yeah, well.
They did not want to let him go.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that's smart in its way.
That's a liability thing, but still, you'd think with his brother being in town with his two friends from Miramar that they'd make an exception or something.
Yeah, you would think that.
But, yeah.
But, all right, you know what? I suppose it's one of those moments where it worked out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and
in the end,
we got permission to do it, so that was good. Well, you picked him up on Saturday and brought him back to the house here. And he loves, the two brothers love each other very much, and he digs the other Marines too, and he loves hanging out together. Mm-hmm. And they know how to play good games. They went out and got super splashes. What are those guns called?
Super soakers. Yeah,
soakers.
We went out to a bunch of different places looking for super soakers. And it turned into like an hour trip because nobody had big enough super soakers. So eventually we came back and we pretty much just shot the place up pretty well.
Yeah, and I'd see that. And by the way, whenever they could do something like that, so they're all in the pool, the four of them, sometimes 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. And I always go out and say, okay, before you start, and I just read them the rules. And, there's only one rule. And I say, now here's the rules. You already know it. It's the main rule. Mm-hmm. No death.
Yep. Absolutely.
You're not allowed to have death. So whatever games you play, because they play things like, I remember, blind chicken fights. They got a big cheer, that from everybody in the pool. Hey, how about blind chicken fights? Yeah. Now, these guys, by the way, you have to know they're sweet and charming, very polite, and tough as nails. They're all, they're Marines. So they're all about 6'1", 6'1" to 6'3", somewhere around there. And they're all, built like Marines and tougher than guys you might see at a fitness club. At a fitness club, you might see guys who look like, say, a young Schwarzenegger or something like that. But that's fine for movies, but it's not as tough as, if you ever see groups in very special operators like Navy SEALs or Army Rangers or Marines and Recon. And if you see these guys, you might not think just by glancing at them, they're so tough. I would avoid pushing them, though.
Oh, yeah. Especially, those operators, I'd stay away from them.
Yeah, they can do kind of anything.
Yeah.
In fact, Sackett, who's last trip he was here, and these two have been here several times already, and we really love having them. And I remember Mom was making one of her big, fancy mom dinners for everybody. Mm-hmm. And there were 5 Marines here or something, and 5 women. And, and like this weekend, your girlfriend was here, and her sister, and then one of their friends. But this one time, Mom was making, a big mom dinner for the Marines. And they like to eat. You never have to say to a Marine, "Oh, come on, eat something."
Yeah, no, you don't.
That never has to be said.
Yeah.
And they're so strong and so tough. She said to Sackett, he was in the living room. He just came back from the bathroom or something, getting something. And she said, "Would you do me a favor? Call a couple of your friends up from downstairs, and I want you to move that sofa for me and take it down the hall to the other room there." And he said, "Sure." But he always says, they're very polite. He always says, "Yes, ma'am, sure." And she went back to cutting whatever the celery or the onions were that she was cutting. And she just glanced back in the living room to say, and one more thing. And as she looked, she went, "Ah!" Because he had picked up the couch himself. And it's not a small couch.
Yeah.
It's a big couch. It's like a 3-unit couch. They're all connected. It's one couch. But this is the kind of thing where, folks, if you and I had to pick this up, and that's with Colonel Jeff, it would take 5 or 6 of us, and we'd position ourselves carefully and lift it slowly, and we'd have to move it slowly, and it would still be very heavy.
Yeah.
Sackett was holding it, was on his shoulder with one arm underneath it. And by the way, he wasn't sweating. There were no veins sticking out. It was like you or I picking up a baseball bat. We wouldn't have trouble doing that. "Hey, do me a favor, pass me that baseball bat." "Oh, okay." You'd pick it up and just hand it over. That's how he was holding that couch. And he wasn't doing it braggingly. It was just, he thought, she said, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What did you call your a couple of other the Marines downstairs?" And he said, "Well, they're watching the game, and I didn't want to bother them, and I thought, you know what, I'll just do it, and then I'll go back downstairs." And she said, that's when she realized that just let him go. She didn't want to keep him there chatting. So she said, "What? Go." So he just smiled and nodded. And again, it's like he's holding a stack of loose leaf paper.
Sackett's a pretty big guy.
He is. Tough as nails and the sweetest guy in the world. Mm-hmm. And so he carried the couch down the hall, right? Yes, down the hall. And he put it in and down, and he came back out. And again, he's not breathing hard. He's not sweating. He's not moving his arm to try and relax it. He's done that job, and he's ready. So now he grabbed a couple of 6-packs and not of gum, to go take downstairs to his friends. And then he went back downstairs to watch the game.
Yeah.
After picking up a couch. But at any rate, that's how much fun it is. They're cool and funny and so polite. I just really like them. I respect them. And you know what, by the way, they picked up our other son, as I said. Boy, they love coming here. They had pool parties, and with a lot of laughter and music. But when the girls left, you and the Marines just returned to your real fun, which was having fights in the pool with the super soakers.
Yep.
And playing blind chicken fights. And by the way, I still don't know what that is, but I had told them, and again, remember, no death. All right?
Yeah.
And they smile, but they know what I mean. Got a thumbs up from McNeil, and he's not kidding. It's okay, no death. Mm-hmm. And I always gather them and repeat the rules, no death.
No, it's probably a good thing that you do so. Just things get a little crazy sometimes.
I know, and you know what? That's good of you to say, but it's the truth. It's good to remind people, no death, all right? And so then Mommy was still cooking, and I went upstairs to watch a John Wayne movie, which you like very much.
Mm-hmm.
And there were no leftovers with Marines, by the
yeah.
way. There's nothing, hey, does anyone want to take the leftovers? They look at you. The what?
Yeah, no, yesterday when they went back to base, you and Mom, they kept saying, no, take the pizza, take all this, take this. And they wound up walking out of here with a box and a half full of pizza and I think like 28 beers or something like that.
Yeah.
Just cause. So, yeah, they're always happy to come over here and eat our food.
And we love that. And they're very polite.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in fact, I've told you this story before, but it's worth repeating. It touches me so much. One of the other trips you and, 4 or 5 Marines had here,
mm-hmm.
Mommy made a big dinner, and Susie and Amber were over. Those are her friends. And so everybody was upstairs ready to eat. She was making a buffet and laid it out there and all the big platters of big food.
Mm-hmm.
And she told the fellas, all the Marines, to get their plates, and they were standing off on the side. And she said, okay, all Marines, go ahead, start us off here. Go through and you pile yourselves up. And folks, they all said, no, ma'am, ladies first. And I'll never forget that. And there was a little pause after that. Mommy said, well, that's very sweet, but go ahead, come on, start things off here. Let's get going. And you guys are hungry. And you said again, everyone said, no, thank you, ma'am. Ladies first. And I remember Mom and Susie and Amber were just so touched. It was so sweet to hear, folks. And I turned to you and the group and just nodded and smiled. And I couldn't say anything because there was a lump in my throat. And tears in my eyes. I just wanted to turn away. I thought, that was the nicest thing I'd ever heard. Whew, what branch of service teaches that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell you one that does, the Marines. Wow. No, ma'am. Ladies first.
Well, I think if we had gone first in the end, there wouldn't have been anything left. So,
You know what? Maybe that was it. But it's true. By the way, that's just a basic kind of manners, though. Ladies first. And by the way, that could be part of the logic to it. And that's fine with me. But because when they fill a plate with food, it's not just a plate of food that doesn't have space on it. It's a mound of food.
Mm-hmm.
And they can go right along. You know how when you and I go through a buffet, we'll usually put, one wing here and a couple of pieces of broccoli there. And certainly for the first platter, the first go through, you don't have that much. Folks, these guys know how to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And they mound something up there. Those plates each weigh as much as that couch.
Well, when it's not the chow hall, it's no holes barred. So
That's right. Boy, it's such a pleasure to watch them. Reminded me, by the way, why do we all have so much barbecue on the 4th? I know that's a, big tradition as Americans, but apart from the barbecue, and which you were running, by the way, and ran really well,
mm-hmm.
hamburgers and hot dogs. By the way, and they love Tabasco. I don't know how this happened.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's part of Southern California and all the coastline of Marine bases from Pendleton down to Miramar. But I mean, folks, that's not just a couple of drops of Tabasco on it. I can make some pretty good eggs, so can you. But they don't just put a few drops of Tabasco here and a few there. They would consider that a serving for someone who doesn't like Tabasco.
Yeah, well, the other day we were at IHOP, and same thing, McNeil, he loves hot sauce. Loves it. And, he got his omelet, really good-looking omelet, opened up the bottle of Cholula, or, that red hot sauce, and he just dumps it. I want to use it next. I should have used it first.
Yeah.
But I was going to use it next, and I reach over to pick it up, and it's light. And I look at it, and there's, maybe an inch left of liquid in the bottle.
And these are not small bottles.
No, it's a restaurant-sized bottle.
Yeah, they're marine bottles.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, in my opinion, I think it ruined the omelet. Certainly ruined him because he was in the bathroom in about 45 minutes. So,
or for about 45 minutes.
Yeah, right.
It's a blanket of Tabasco.
Yeah. No, it's not a blanket of Tabasco. It's more like a bath.
That's right. It's a quilt.
Yeah.
You know what? And they had a couple of other Marine friends here a few days before that. And they were telling him they were already in the Middle East. And they were telling him what their experiences was. Well, they and I wanted to hear that because you're going to the Middle East.
Yep.
And but I wanted to hear their stories because, well, that's where you're going. And they're not stories that you would like to hear, by the way. Nothing bad, but, but it's a little crazy. Their stories all ended with, so then we really turned around quickly and drove back to base. That's, when you see, well, then, so there was one that was full of locals. The one SUV, slammed into another on purpose. And then they all got out and started to fight. And I remember saying, what did you do? Well, we figured it was time to get out of there. And I thought, I said out loud too, you know what? Good thinking. You're right. And I'm my turn to use it. Good thinking. That's correct. They're not the best places to, if you get a night off on leave, it's not the best places to say, hey, why don't we go look for girls? Probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
And, but I love them here though,
Mm-hmm.
And you hung a flag. We're going to take a picture of it later with us underneath it, and we'll put it on our website, folks. And but boy, I'll tell you, and we don't have fireworks at our 4th of Julys. I never quite got that people love them so much. I never quite did. Even as a kid, we'd go to, Fireman's Field, and which was around our area there on Long Island, and everyone would get there, and you look up, and they had big fireworks shows, and they were run by firemen, which we all said to each other. I'll never forget that. The firemen run this, so as if that make everyone feel better. We would nod at each other, going, "Oh, well, they know, what they're doing. They know how to do it well and safely." I don't know what they know how to do. Sure, I trust them all, but I'm not sure. We don't have. We don't have firecrackers or bottle rockets, and we don't really want them. I never understood why we don't kind of complain more that, what about real accidents with fireworks? Isn't there always like 2 offensive linemen who lose thumbs before the Super Bowl? Don't the owners, have the guts to say anymore? Okay, anyone who loses something to fireworks doesn't have to worry about showing up for practice because you're off the team.
Yeah.
And I never quite got that. I know folks do, but do their kids ask? Do kids ask their parents for these? You never asked for those.
No. If anything, I asked for those little snappers that you just throw on the ground. I'm talking the little balls, and you just go chuck it on the ground. It makes a snap sound. That's pretty much all I asked for. I remember last night actually, Sackett and McNeil just turned to each other one moment, and they were like, "Hey, wait a second. Why don't we have fireworks?" And I think I just said to them, because that's a horrible idea.
Yeah. You know what? That's the right answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And they looked at each other and they said, all right, well, yeah, we won't get Roman candles then. And as if like to know exactly what I was thinking without saying it.
Yeah. And Roman candles. Well, it tells you right off the start, if it's from Rome, it's probably not a good thing to do for a couple of thousand years afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
What I loved also is that you and the Marines, we have a broken toilet seat downstairs here.
Yeah, broken like in not even half. It's more like there's a quarter of it left.
Yeah, and by the way, it's probably my fault, but I remember one side got broken, and it's a wooden seat, so it just cracked, broken, and I didn't fix it, and I could have, and but then just a day or so before you got here, I said, and the same thing. I just sat down on it. I didn't care. I don't plop down on it, by the way. I don't, I don't use a springboard and go 4 feet in the air and then come down on the toilet seat. I'm very gentle with it. But I sat down on it and I could hear another crack from the left side, and I realized, well, I'll bet you $1 I know what that was. And sure, I'm going to get another one. I'll call, maybe Amazon. And get a toilet seat from them. But what I love is that my son, I said to him, tell the guys when they get here to go upstairs to the bathroom in the hallway in front of your bedrooms there. And he said, well, no, this one's fine. And I remember thinking, what do you mean it's fine, though? There's no seat. You said only a fifth of it is still there. It's like the hat part that's a seat.
Yeah.
And he said that was okay with him. But even for number 2 movements, you're going to do that. But he said, oh, it's all right. And the other Marines felt the same way. And not because they're so rugged. They just figured like all 19-year-old or 20-year-old young men times 100 because they're Marines. They're worried. They spent the whole 3 days here. So did you. Well, go into the bathroom. And, there's a game on, a baseball or something, or, a death game for videos, and someone goes to the bathroom. They go to the bathroom. And I remember, thinking, well, that was kind of impressive that they, just like guys, I suppose I would have done the same thing at that age, sophomore year in college. I would have just gone to the bathroom. Well, but there's, the seat is broken. That's all right. I can handle it.
Yeah, well, as our former commandant so perfectly said, we're going to do more with less. So, that might as well have been a standard issue toilet seat for us.
And that's those stories again, the July 4th stories, people get maimed on July 4th from fireworks. And it's gotten worse with fireworks. All night long, they're going from an hour before dark till 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. As he was just saying, if it weren't July 4th, you'd think a civil war was underway. Colonel Jeff remembers seeing adults at barbecues, lighting them and laughing like mental patients. And all right, well, didn't lose anything this time. We don't see articles in the paper about that. Emergency rooms report 7-hour waits for people who've lost fingers.
With a firework through their cranial.
Yeah, and it's still lit.
Yeah.
It's sticking out of their heads, still lit.
Like a cartoon, that stick is still sticking out of the other end, and it's just blasting.
The Roman candle.
Yep.
Still firing Roman candles. I never threw snowballs at cars growing up. I thought that was mean, actually. My parents didn't tell me not to do it. I just felt that way. I thought that this seems mean. But my friends used to say it was un-American for boys not to throw snowballs at trucks. And I thought that was a neat way to say it. But, all right, I guess I threw some at trucks, but I didn't like to throw them in cars with open windows going by, because those were just people, just neighbors, going to the supermarket to get some milk. And not the enemy. And I love that you guys were sleeping back in your rooms. That means so much to me.
Mm. It's nice to be in there.
Yeah. You sleep really well there.
Oh, yeah.
It reminds me also every time, even when you're not here, about how when I used to go work and do shows at night, when I came home, even though it was a little later than when you should normally be in bed, I'd pull in the driveway, pull in the garage, and I'd hear a little fist just pounding on a glass window. Not pounding to break it, but it was it was really, and it was cute. And I'd step out, get out of the car and walk outside back to the driveway and look up, and you were there in your pajamas, just knocking, and when you saw me, you'd wave, and I'd wave back, and then I'd come up and put you to bed and sit there and rub your hair while you went to sleep. And you know what? That means a lot. I still think of that when I get out in my car. Think of you two boys and the things you do in your own windows there. And that one you did with me, knocking on the window to get my attention and then waving, means a lot. Doesn't sound like a lot, folks, maybe, but it sure is to me. Mm-hmm. And I love having my sons and the other Marines playing in the pool. No death. But my favorite part was when you hung the flag and it was waving over you guys, hung it from the balcony. It was really nice. And you guys know how much that means. I'm grateful to you. I don't know that there's an awful lot else to talk about for July 4th. We ate well, mm-hmm. and we were together.
Yeah.
We slept well, but we were together. Mm-hmm. Everything comes back to, and we were together. Mm-hmm. And the broken toilet is just fine.
Can you go another 10 years?
Yeah. I probably won't wait that long. I'll probably order one before I leave town. Mm-hmm. I'm going tomorrow. I'm working with Seinfeld in New York at the Beacon Theater, in fact.
Oh, wow.
And then in Kentucky, in Richmond, Kentucky. Well, those are good jobs. They've been booked for a long time, but it really hurt me when I knew you were coming here for this week. Mm-hmm. And that I wouldn't be with you those few days. I wouldn't be with you to see you waving from your bedroom window. Mm. But you know what? I'll be back. I'll see you before you deploy. Mm-hmm. And you know what, folks? Ladies first. And you know that, and I know that, because we all know the same things. We know that Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. So, as always, folks, remember, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to, and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. So remember that with your own families, and we'll see you here next time.